Samanta Chakravalesu Atantra Gachantu Devata Saddhammang Muni Rajas Sunantu Sagga Mokkadang Dhammasavana Kalu Ayang Badanta Dhammasavana Kalu Ayang Badanta Dhammasavana Kalu Ayang Badanta Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Good morning, everyone. Today we are conducting a Dhamma talk, a Dhamma discourse based on meditation, and our purpose is to emphasize upon the benefits of doing meditation, so everyone could have some interest in the subject. As the Buddha has explained, there are various ways that we can develop our wisdom and to bring the tranquility to the mind. Our minds have a natural tendency to go into various objects in a shorter duration. That is called the scattered nature. Because our mind has a disposition to enjoy, not to enjoy or not to satisfy in a single object, but to search pleasure in various objects with various appearances. That's a natural tendency that we all possess. For example, if we are stuck in a certain room without any connection to the outer world, it will be very hard for us to remain in the room without seeing the outer world, without having any connection. Or within the room, we still have various objects, few objects I would say. The four walls, we can see the four walls, the roof, the floor. If we are given a bed or provided food occasionally, 2-3 times per day, and we may have another toilet. But still within this confined area, though we have few objects and we also can see our own body, those objects will not satisfy our needs in searching for pleasure. So we would find it very difficult to stay in that confinement, and most of us experienced this during the pandemic of Corona. While the COVID had struck our world, in most of the places there were lockdowns. People were struggling to remain in the houses, even with the televisions and the internet. We still found it very difficult to spend the time with our families and also within the house. What was this? What caused this struggle? What was the main reason for this unease? That's because our minds have a disposition, or naturally there's a tendency in our minds to go in search of various objects and find pleasure in them. So we are never satisfied with a limited amount of objects. That's the same reason why we feel boredom. In staying in one place for a longer period, because we need new experiences. This may be interpreted as a reason for growth, I know that, but at the same time, this is the main reason that we feel dissatisfied about our lives. We have to understand this deeply. In meditation, for example, normally what we do is we focus on a single object or a limited range of objects and try to be with it. If someone could meditate for 1 hour focusing on one object, that means his mind doesn't need any other objects anymore. That's why he could remain in that object for a longer period. If you are unable to stay within a confinement for few days with having few objects rather than a single object, we find it still difficult. Imagine how it would be boring for someone to remain in a single object for a longer period. That's why meditation is not attractive to most of us. In meditation, we cut off the connection with the entire outer world and we try to remain with few or a single objects. And this, how could this lead to happiness and why it has been encouraged by some sages? Though we find pleasure in various objects in our lives, we are not aware that that tendency is mostly driven by a desire, underlying desire that brings discomfort when it is not satisfied. That's the main reason. We have inheritedly obtained desire to experience various objects. It can even be seen in animals at their young age. Think about a puppy or a kitten. They're always nice and wants to explore the world. That's the nature of our mind. And this desire, this liking is fueled by a certain desire within ourselves. And when this desire grows stronger, we find it very difficult to remain with limited amounts of objects without exploring. Then one can ask the question, isn't this exploring is the reason for our growth? Yes, it is a reason for our growth, there's no doubt about that. But we should be able to balance this desire. And we should be able to live, to shift into the different moods. What I meant is, sometimes we should be able to satisfy ourselves, should be able to remain happy even with a limited amount of objects. At the same time, when it is necessary, we should be exploring the world as well. If we don't have that first capacity to be with a limited range of objects and to satisfy ourselves with that, what happens is that desire to explore will always get stronger and stronger. In the end, it can lead to a situation that we cannot even focus ourselves for a shorter period on a particular object. That's the main reason that same desire to explore has gone into a level that we are unable to focus on a video, for example, in the YouTube or in the internet that lasts for 20-30 minutes. The focusing capacity has dropped down for just for few minutes, 4-5 minutes, because we are unable to focus on. Our mind always needs to go to a new object. That desire to explore is the fundamental reason for our growth. No doubt about that. There's no doubt in it. But that same desire, if not properly controlled, can be something unbeneficial. So in the end, we'll not be able to focus even at a beneficial object for some time. That's why the focusing capacity of humans have dropped down over the time scale, which is not a good sign. Therefore, we have to have the capacity, we should develop the capacity that we'll be able to focus on one or few objects for a longer period without worrying about other objects or without the desire to go into various objects. And that is something that we develop through meditation. If someone is doing the breathing exercises, focusing on the breath, because breath is not a very attractive object, like a song or a film. In a film, there are various dynamics. Sometimes there are beautiful objects, attractive people, some sceneries that brings forth or arouses lust, sometimes anger, fight, revenge. All these aspects are, film is embodied with all these aspects. So that's why we find pleasure and we find it very exciting to go through a film. The reason is we encounter various new objects, scenarios, sceneries while we are watching some movie. And now it has come to the level that we are only satisfied with high class movies because we will not be able to watch and derive pleasure out of a movie that was filmed in 1980s. We watch some of such movies, we find that acting and everything was in a different scale, different level. And the photography or the camera, the quality of the video filming, all the reels, we cannot derive pleasure out of it, but people of the 90s, 80s could do that because that's the best experience they have ever experienced. They have had experienced. But now with the development of the technology, we find pleasure in a different level. So that's how we improve in our senses, in our pleasures. But if you are focusing on just breath, whether it was focused by a person 2,500 years ago, or 100 years ago, or in the present, or in the if someone focuses in future, all will be observing a similar type of an experience. A flow of air going into the nostrils and coming out of the nostrils. And this is not a fancy object. It's just a breath body that is moving in and out. And we find it very boring sometimes because it's very difficult to derive pleasure out of such a neutral object. It won't be easy for us to look at one tree and spend hours just looking, observing it. Some may be able to do that, nature lovers, but most of us would not be able to get intense pleasure or find pleasure in observing a single object for a longer period. But if when we go to a party or to a carnival, as there are various objects always coming up, we find it very exciting. What is happening here is, in meditation, we train our minds to be satisfied with a very neutral single object or a range of objects. For example, if we are focusing on our body parts, it's a range of objects. There are very few types of objects within the same range. But if you are focusing on breath, we are just focusing on one object. If you are focusing on a Kasina disc, we are just focusing on a single object. And those objects are very neutral, we say. Neutral objects has the capacity to calm down our minds. Now we'll come to that point. Because our tendency, as I explained before, has the natural desire, or it pushes our minds towards various objects and try to find pleasure out of them. And that desire is somewhat beneficial in our growth, in knowledge, in wisdom, in development, especially in the human civilization. Yes, that's very beneficial. There's no doubt in it and there's no argument in it. But the point is, there is another faculty within us which can be developed So we will be able to satisfy ourselves within a range of neutral objects. That it means we are able to shut down our desire to explore the world. This balance is very vital. This balance is very vital. Otherwise, what happens is just floating away with the current of that desire, because it can never be satisfied. That's the next point here. You put how much fuel into the fire, fire would never say enough. It would keep on burning. You keep on putting firewood for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, months, years, it will still keep on burning. Whatever you put into the fire, it will keep on burning. Until when the fuel is finished, it extinguishes. So if you want to maintain that desire, you have to keep on putting the fuel, inserting the fuel. The same way, the desire to explore the world cannot be fully satisfied with getting the experiences. We have seen objects with our eyes for 30, 40, 50 years. Some would have for 20, 30, 20 years, 20, 25 years. But we never felt that it is enough that we have seen. Even though we are seeing the same objects all the time, our object range is quite limited. We don't experience objects of the whole world, the entire world. We have our inner circles, we have our associates, and mostly we encounter with them in day-to-day life. The change is we encounter them in certain sequences. That's why we don't stay with the same person for a longer period. We depart, we come together, so there are new dynamics in our lives. But still, it's a range of objects. It doesn't matter whether how much we encounter them or experience them, our desire would never be satisfied. We need more and more. Even though you have watched the best 10 movies in the world, after you are finishing it, you will need another. You are waiting for another one to come. What does this mean? The desire to explore can never be satisfied through exploring. I'll repeat that word again. The desire to explore the world will never be satisfied with exploring. So that's not the way for satisfaction. That is a path to growth, yes indeed. That is a path for our development, no doubt in that. But if you pursue on that path only, our minds will always be in craving. We will be craving or in need of new objects. Otherwise, it can never be satisfied. Because this is driven by a desire. It can be a wholesome or unwholesome, that doesn't matter. There is a desire which cannot be fully satisfied by giving it the experiences it desires. But it would crave more and more. And then what happens is, if this desire is given more and more opportunities, and if it finds that there are various opportunities in our lives to explore new objects, instead of being satisfied with a single object at least for some period, it will jump into a new object. That's what happened to us when you are scrolling down in the internet, when you are scrolling down in the Facebook, or when you are scrolling down in YouTube. Sometimes we are unable to finish a single video. Our desire, mind jumps into another one. This is the same desire that helps us to grow, but if it is not fully controlled, if it is not regulated properly, it can lead us. It can decline. It can lead to the decline. It can our focusing capacity could easily decline. Therefore, we have to develop the other faculty in our mind that enables us to be satisfied with a single or a limited range of objects. then the question that arises is it pleasurable? Can we get some desire out, or can we get some pleasure out of it? Yes, indeed we can. But that is a different type of a pleasure. One time, Buddha met a Brahmin called Maggavihārī, a male Brahmin, Maggavihārī, who was actually accusing the Buddha for teaching a spiritual doctrine that is not encouraging sensual satisfaction or gratification of the senses. His argument was the actual happiness of a man is in the gratification of the senses and fulfilling the desires. If someone has a desire to see a beautiful, attractive object, maybe it could be animate or inanimate, not giving the opportunity to satisfy that is a suffering. Gaining the opportunity to satisfy it is happiness. That was his argument. And the Buddha, as a teacher, had ordained many young people, men and women, and they were living a celibate life, especially abstaining from sex and all the sensual pleasures, and they were living under celibacy. And they were pursuing a different spiritual goal, developing concentration, insight, wisdom in the pursuit of getting rid of the rebirth, that is to attain the nirvana. Maggavihārī found it was very unattractive, and he accused Buddha of depriving the young people of pleasure. One day he was jogging and he saw a heap of straw that was piled up as a bed in one place, and he knew someone had slept overnight. Then he praised the person because there were no wrinkles in it was very nicely arranged, neatly arranged, but someone has slept on it. But the person who has slept has not turned himself while sleeping or rolling on the bed. So if he said that anyone who has slept here, he should be very mindful, because when you look at the nature of the straw bed, seems the person has been spending a very mindful sleep. And he praised this. And at that time he asked, who had slept here? And people said it was Samana Gautama, Buddha Gautama who slept there. And he was furious even to hear his name. He said, no, I don't want to hear that person's name even, because he's a person who destroys the pleasures of the humans. And he went away. On his return, Buddha was waiting for him, and they started a discussion. And Maggavihārī accused the Buddha of depriving the young of pleasure. And Buddha asked a counter question, because he said, if there is a desire, you should satisfy it. You should not suppress it. That was his argument. Then the Buddha's argument was, because it's true that if the desire is not satisfied, that is a real suffering for the person. Then the Buddha counter questioned him, asked, okay, I agree with you, because if there is a desire, if you don't satisfy it, the person would be in deep suffering. He will be really distressed and feel really uncomfortable because he is not gaining what he wants. So they should find out one way or another to garner all this, what the person needs. And the Buddha's argument was, in case if a person has extinguished or subdued the desire to various objects, this desire has subdued, if it has got extinguished, the person has no desire anymore, what do you think? Is it a pleasure for him to go in search of those objects? Or can he just remain silent or without any pursuit and remain calm by himself? Maggavihari had to acknowledge that if the desire is not there, giving object is not going to cause him any happiness. Because, for example, if we are not hungry, if we are fully satisfied with the food and we have eaten well, even you bring the best cuisine in the world, you'll not be interested in eating it. Obviously. Because the desire is no more. That's what happens in sexual activities. When you reach the culmination, when the act is done, people doesn't get the desire further to involve in sex. When we have listened to the same song and fulfilled our desires, that's the end of the story. We are not going to listen to it again and again. Sometimes, in some occasions, one may listen to the same song for some time, but always there is a limitation. When there is no desire for a particular object, providing with it would be the suffering. Then he gave a nice simile. Think about a person who has a rash in the body, or a leprosy person afflicted by leprosy. He needs to scratch his body all the time because it feels itchy. Or he needs to heat in his body with fire, so he feels some comfort at that time. If you have any of us who have experienced a rash in the body, you feel like scratching would be you will get immense pleasure by scratching the place. And you can keep on scratching. You know it's harmful, but still you find it pleasurable. And the Buddha asked, yes, you find pleasure in it, but what happens if the rash is already cured? If it is no more, can you derive pleasure out of scratching at that time? Answer is no. Scratching is pleasurable only when there is an itch. In the same way, these various objects are desirable or attractive only when there is the desire to experience them. If someone could extinguish this desire, at that time, efforts to satisfy it makes no sense. That was his argument. A person who has no such desire, if you present him with various objects, he finds it very uncomfortable. He finds it unnecessary. He says, no, I'm not in need of that. That's the same thing which happens when there is no desire to eat. If someone presents you the best food in the world, you'll find, no, I am not interested in it. I'm very sorry. Maybe if you had presented it before, after, even you don't feel that you miss it. That's the point here. You don't feel sad about it even, because you are now completely satisfied. But when you feel hungry, you remember, oh, I could have eaten that. I didn't get the opportunity to eat it. Think about this incident. The best food that you like is brought to you when you have completed your meal and you are full. Even though it's the best food that you like, you will not even feel that I didn't have the opportunity to eat it, because the appetite is not there. That is the same thing which happens to all of us. When the desire is there, we need. When there is no desire, we don't need it. There are two ways that desire we may not experience our desire. Sometimes if we have done a certain thing, if we have experienced certain objects, we feel enough of it to some time, not permanently, for some time. Then after after another few hours or few days, we'll still again get the desire to do the same thing or to experience the same thing. That's very clear in sensual activities. Sometimes we are satisfied, and another few days we need it back. So that temporal satisfaction gained through gratifying the senses is one way of not having the desire. But that's not what we mean in meditation. In meditation, what we do is we suppress the desire by focusing on a different object. When we start to focus on a different object, such as the breath, a neutral object, I would say, you cannot develop meditation in sensual objects. You cannot just look at a naked picture and develop concentration on that. No, that's a different thing. It has to be a neutral object. That's why Buddha has introduced 38 such neutral objects on which you can develop the concentration. 38 such objects. So when you are focusing on breath is one of them. When you are focusing on breath, you are giving your entire attention towards that object, and even you not being aware, the desire to explore would subdue to some extent. Then what happens? You will not feel as uncomfortable as when you are stuck in a one place or in a room, as it happened during the lockdown. During the lockdown, when we are in the house, there are various objects. There are more than 100 objects that you can keep on seeing. There are pictures in the house, chairs, bed, table, there was food. But still we found it's not enough. We wanted to explore the world. We wanted to go out. I'm not saying people to be stuck in one house and remain. They need to explore the world. But I'm telling this is the fundamental structure that we need to understand in our mindset. Even though there were hundreds of objects in our house, we were not satisfied with it. We wanted more and more. And we found it like a prison to remain in the house for some time, maybe for weeks. I think most of the people experience this dissatisfaction. That's the time the people who hated work wanted to go to work. They found how important the work was. People who were some children wanted to go to schools. The ones who hated going to school in the first place. That's the time the people started to see that our work has to be like, there should be a world system, so we should be involved in, rather than blaming that we are all in a rat race. That is needed, but what we need to understand is what happens if we keep on following this path. It's going to lead to some detrimental effects. Then in meditation, what happens is we are focusing on a one object or a single object without giving our attention to various objects, and we not being aware of it, the desire subdues. When the desire has subdued, we don't find it uncomfortable to be with a single object. What happens in the lockdown is we have to be in a limited range of objects while the desire is present. That's the point here. Since the desire was present, it was not happy about the amount of objects that you have. It wanted more and more. That's why it's called a fire. As a simile. How much you put into it, it will burn. So when you are just experiencing 100,000 objects in the house, first 2-3 days may be very attractive to be in the house, to be free from the work, and everyone started enjoying it. But when it passed few days it starts to pass, when it became weeks, that's the time we got fed up. It is not ready to be satisfied with a range of objects because the desire was blazing. But what happens in meditation is we subdue this desire. So there is no any need of in search of various objects. And we find peace in a single object. This is the tranquility of the mind. Surprisingly, a person who could not be satisfied with 100 objects in a one confined room will find it very pleasurable to remain in the single object even without moving a limb of his body. It seems contradicting. Now, we have millions of objects in our life, and if you are confined to 100 objects to live with for 1 month, we will find it very, very uncomfortable. Even we ever give a toll to remain in for few hours, we find it very uncomfortable. But when in meditation, the yogis are satisfied with a single object even without moving the body, staying in the same posture. While we are reading a book, we may sit on the chair, or while we are watching a movie or playing a video game, we'll remain in the seat. But because we are having new experiences with our eyes and with our ears, that's the reason. So we may forget our posture at that time. But various objects are coming, the various experiences are coming. But in meditation, it's just a single object. And we don't even, some yogis who are in a high concentration doesn't even move a finger throughout these hours. It seems contradicting. A person could not be satisfied with a person who was experiencing million objects, for example, in day-to-day life, cannot be satisfied with 100 or 1000 objects, is now satisfied with a single object even without moving. What is the reason for this underlying contrast? That's because of the desire. We are all burning with a desire to explore, which is not regulated properly. That's the point here. When it is properly regulated, when it is properly controlled, one can remain with a limited range of objects as well. And that will increase your capacity to focus. And during the exploring, because exploring has to be done, there's no doubt in it. We are not supposed to stay in one object for all time. We have to explore the world. But during the exploring, you will be able to focus on beneficial objects better than before. At the moment, our focusing capacity has reduced drastically. Therefore, even the object is beneficial, we find it very uncomfortable. That's the reason why the focusing capacity in YouTube has duration of one video has dropped down. That's why the people who are making documentaries try to make it as short as possible. It's a very unfortunate thing. One may feel as we are utilizing the time properly. One can argue in another way that we are getting the best out of the time. But the truth is, a truth that cannot be denied is, people have reduced their focusing capacity. It's very difficult for people to focus on one class for 40 minutes now. Focus for 1 hour. Given the fact in the ancient era, people could listen to a Dhamma talk throughout the whole night. Some people could do that. How much of capacity would they have had? There were many monks who could bear the entire Tipitaka in their mind, in memory. And one would say memorization is not necessary because we have all the information in the internet. Yes, you don't need to memorize everything because they are found in the internet. But always keep it in mind. We also have reduced our capacity to focus because of these things, which is not a healthy attribute. So what we are supposed to do is while keeping the desire to explore alive, we have to regulate. We should develop the capacity to regulate it. For that, you have to focus. You have to do some meditation. Focusing on the breath. I'm not going to teach the techniques for that. The Dhamma talk was to teach the benefits of meditation. So you may find it interesting to follow a meditation teacher or monk and to do some practice by yourselves, because the purpose was to elaborate on the benefits of meditation. So I just focused on one benefit. That is the development of the focusing capacity. And I just wanted to emphasize why it has become difficult for us. And some of you may find it difficult to focus on this talk as well. Now it has been 45 minutes, around 45 minutes. If you find it difficult to focus, that means our focusing capacity has greatly dropped down. In meditation, we develop this focusing capacity with pleasure. That's the point here. It's not just a suffering to remain in the single object for some time. The suffering comes because of the desire. In meditation, we subdue this desire. So when the desire is subdued, you don't find pleasure in various objects. You find it's very comfortable with a single object, because since the desire has gone down, you feel calmness, coolness in your body and also in your mind. And believe it or not, that pleasure you gain through meditation is much, much, much pleasurable than any other sensual experience that you would experience in this entire world. It's a very big statement I'm making. It's more pleasurable than sex. It's more pleasurable than watching a movie. It's more enjoyable, means it's more comfortable than listening to the best song in the world. It's more comfortable than going to a concert. I'm not saying lay people to deprive of all those pleasures. No, I'm not saying that. You have to keep it in mind. There is another department in our life and a faculty in our life that is more pleasurable than the sensual side. And with that experience of meditation, development of concentration, you can experience the spiritual bliss. At the same time, you develop the capacity of focus, which can be used in our exploration for our benefit. Because if we are not regulating this desire, we would end up in a situation that we will not be able to focus on something for an extended period of time. If you have that capacity to focus at anything at your will, as you like, it's mastery over your mind. It's a trait that many people cannot obtain, that not have obtained. So we know whenever I want to watch or read a book or to focus on a lecture, the duration is 1 hour or 2 hours, it's not any huge issue for me. I can just focus and gain the benefit out of it. But your focus is low. It is indeed a big problem in our lives, even though we don't claim it. It is indeed a problem for any person. If you find it difficult to focus for some time, no one can deny that it's a problem. Deny the fact that it's a problem. No, it is indeed a problem. Therefore, meditation helps us to develop this trait in our minds and to gain benefits out of it. So that would be my talk. I'm not going to extend it for a longer period. So what we are supposed to do is choose a good meditation. There are many Buddhist teachers who can instruct you to practice well. to select a good object out of the 38 objects the Buddha has recommended. Take one of them and develop your concentration skills daily, at least for half an hour or 20 minutes. Should be able to separate some time for your mind, because we never forget to separate our time for eating, taking a bath. If you are not able to do that, then your life is in a big danger. If you cannot eat properly at this proper time, if you are not interested in taking a bath and cleaning your body, or you are interested in something else, or in gratifying your senses, then you are in a big, big trouble. Normally, we don't forget such things. Because we need food to our body, we need to clean our body. Cleansing is necessary. The same way, cleansing of the mind, food for the mind, is meditation. Because that capacity you develop through concentration will enhance your capacities and spiritual happiness and satisfaction. A person who has done meditation for half an hour daily would be more happyful than another person, ordinary person, who is not involved in meditation. It's a known fact, a proven fact. You can develop mindfulness of breathing for few hours, for few minutes daily. In the end, you will find that would be the best time period in your life, in your day-to-day life. And you, without being aware of that, you are suppressing the desire to explore, and also you are increasing your capacities in focus. That would help you in studies, whichever grade or stage you are in, and also in your day-to-day activities while growing in your careers. So I wish you all the best. May all of you be able to pursue a good meditation subject, learn from someone, a reputed or a reliable teacher, and develop this capacity of focus that would be very useful in your day-to-day lives and for your successive future. So I wish you all the best. And this Dhamma talk was given. All the children and grandchildren are humbly have invited Venerable Watagoda Maggavihari Thero to transfer merits to Dr. P.M.B Cyril's 91st birthday was held today, who passed away on June 2023. So may we transfer all the merits to Dr. P.M.B Cyril on his 91st birthday. Wherever he is, may he rejoice on our merits and be free from suffering and garner happiness as he wishes, and finally attain the final bliss of Nibbana. Also to bless Dhamma Cyril, mother and grandmother of many, and Irene De Silva, aunt and grandmother, for a healthy and meaningful life through Dhamma. I wish both of them longevity in the life and also good health, and may they be able to pursue in Dhamma as they wish. And also we like to transfer merits to Hamilton Jayasekara and Sujata Jayasekara, who passed away about 5 years ago. May they rejoice on this merit of the Dhamma talk, and may they be free from suffering and enjoy the happiness in samsara, and finally attain the final liberation of Nibbana. And we also have blessed the speaker, Venerable Maggavihari Thero, and may you, Venerable Thero, receive all the merits we accumulated from the day we invited you for Dhamma talk up till today by listening to the Dhamma. May Bhante Nathaputra, who organized this Dhamma talk, who was collaborating with the group, and all the bhikkhus in this institution receive merits for helping me to make this event successful, and also Prasad Bisoisa and everyone who helped in recording and broadcasting. And the one who invited, his name is not mentioned, I don't know the name anyway. Whoever invited and arranged the talk, may he or she will be able to gain the merits of Dhamma sharing, and may her life, present life, future lives, and the final deliverance be achieved as wished. And wish you all the best. May everyone who listened to the Dhamma talk will have the courage. I hope you enjoyed the talk. Would have the courage and the desire and the interest in following meditation and regulating your desires, and finally find peace in your day-to-day life. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Idang vo ñāti nang hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Idang vo ñāti nang hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Idang vo ñāti nang hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Ākāsattha ca bhummattha deva nāga mahiddhika. Puññantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sambuddha sāsanang. Ākāsattha ca bhummattha Devānāgā mahiddhikā puññantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sambuddha desanang. Ākāsattā ca bhummattā devānāgā mahiddhikā puññantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sambuddha sāvakan chiran rakkantu tvaṁ sadā. Imina puñña kammena māme bāla samāgamo sataṁ samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiyā. Idamme puñña kammang āsavakkaya vahang hotu sabba dukkha pamuncatu.